Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hey, a quick note before we begin. Today's conversation explores psychedelics, addiction, and recovery, and it also includes a discussion of trauma and mental health. This conversation is offered for educational and reflection purposes only and is not meant as medical or therapeutic advice. Please take care of yourself as you listen, and if you are struggling, support is available. In the United States, you can call or text 988 at any time. There seems to be a certification for everything these days, from yoga teacher trainings to coaching to trauma-informed facilitation, internal family systems, nonviolent communication, family constellations, energy healing in a variety of forms, Reiki, breathwork, even cacao ceremonies. There's some sort of certification program for cacao ceremonies. But perhaps the more interesting question isn't why there would be training when it comes to psychedelic facilitation, but rather, if people are already seeking these experiences, how do we create conversations around them that are informed, ethical, and grounded in safety? And so today, our guest is Zappy Zapolin, who is an entrepreneur, a filmmaker, and the founder of Psychedelic Concierge, which is an educational platform designed to help train and support professionals in the principles of preparation, in holding space, and helping with the integration of different psychedelic experiences. Zappy is also the director of an award-winning documentary called The Reality of Truth, which features some people that you will recognize and know, like perhaps Michelle Rodriguez, who is an actress, Deepak Chopra, who we are all, I think, aware of, Ram Dass, who many of you know and love, as well as Marianne Williamson and others who are all talking about their own work, exploring the intersection of spirituality, consciousness, and human transformation, as well as how psychedelics can inform this journey. And so in this conversation, we explore some important things like set and setting, the role of a journeyer's belief systems in their worldview and how that can shape these transformative experiences, and what's really important to know if you're thinking about experimenting with psychedelics, and why integration may just be more important actually than the journey itself. So we're discussing the emerging landscape of psychedelics and psychedelic education and the responsibility that comes with guiding others as a journey guide or as a space holder or someone who is acting as a doula into these profound altered states of consciousness. So whether you're curious, skeptical, or simply interested in this evolving conversation and dialogue and how these altered states of consciousness can truly bring about healing and increased capacity for our human potential, then this episode is going to invite you to ask some of those deeper questions about your own beliefs and interests and openness to this kind of work, and how it can be done in a thoughtful, ethical, and deeply human way. Human in the good sense of the word, as opposed to just leaving someone out there alone, doing it on their own, right? How community and connection are very, very vital components of creating a ceremonial space or creating ritual around this type of soul journey. So let's dive in. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm here with Russell Case.
Thank you very much for introducing me. I'm the co-host.
And we are here with Zappy Zapolin. How are you?
How are you?
I am fantastic. I am living in probably the greatest moment in human history, the psychedelic renaissance, AI, air conditioning, antibiotics. I mean, wow, this is it.
Right? Yeah, we came back at the right time.
Yes. Beautiful times.
We had the very synchronistic experience of last weekend. What was it, 2 weeks ago? No, it was last weekend. We watched your documentary
two weekends ago
on ayahuasca with Michelle Rodriguez and other friends of yours. I think there was a marquee.
The Truth of Reality,
The Truth of Reality.
Yeah.
There was
The reality of truth.
The Reality of Truth.
And then
I always say I'm going to make a sequel called The Truth of Reality,
I think you should.
And then the following day, we did ayahuasca for the first time.
Come on.
Yeah, we watched it to prep for the experience.
Wow.
And I just want to ask, how long did it take you to make that documentary? It felt like years.
It took me over 5 years to make it.
5 years.
What I've learned about this documentary filmmaking is you got to be extremely patient. You think it's going to be done in 6 months, but then a little more of the story comes out, and then it takes a left turn, and you're like, oh my God, I got to follow this, And so I tried to follow Michelle Rodriguez and our friends for a few years after we had our ayahuasca experience, and Michelle and I wound up doing, several other psychedelic journeys together in different places. And I kind of didn't want it to end. I was just like, my family was like, is this movie ever going to end, or are you just shooting indefinitely?
For the listeners at home, Michelle Rodriguez is the star of the Fast and Furious franchise. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you have to make another documentary now.
Yes, I've got another one coming out I'm going to tell you about for sure.
Awesome.
But yeah, I love, and did you already so you had the ayahuasca set up already, and then you watched the movie as prep?
We went to a ceremony.
We went to a ceremony with an ayahuasquero, and we thought, well, we should check a couple of different films out tonight while we're, freaking out in our cabin in the woods. And yours was the first one we watched, and we were really taken with it. One of the things that really surprised me and was interested in is the arc of your experience in that documentary, because I felt in the beginning that there was a kind of sense of, how can I put this, a youthfulness and spirit in the beginning.
A naivety?
I don't want to say that, but a youthfulness and spirit, a kind of joie de vivre that seems to have been wizened by the ayahuasca experience. Like something changed in you fundamentally in your voice and your manner after that. And I have to say that that was true for the both of us as well. We both, and I think this might surprise the listeners at home, we were both beaten up that weekend and came out different. And I think most people don't really think of, taking mushrooms and having a nice afternoon and then feeling like you had some kind of profound emotional experience by it. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it really does. That was, for me, I had a handful of good psychedelic experiences before that. But when I went to do that, I was, like you see in the movie, I was having this sort of a spiritual midlife crisis where I did everything society told me, but I wasn't really fulfilled. I knew that deep down inside, I didn't even know what I was doing here. Everybody's like, oh my God, you're so successful. This is great. And I'm like, I don't even know, if there's a point to this life, that it's even worth living, And so going into that, I just was like, I think the exuberance was around, I think this is going to change everything, and then it did, but not necessarily in exactly the way that I thought.
Yeah.
So
How would
as you
you
guys
how would
know,
you describe that? Like, how would you describe what it changed for you? Like, what did you go
so
in thinking it would change, and what did you come out with?
yeah, I thought that it was going to sort of give me the answers, and I would be directed down this new path, which I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but when I actually took the ayahuasca, and I'll just let you guys know that there was about a dozen of us who wound up doing the ayahuasca in the jungle there. But me, Michelle Rodriguez, and one other person, we went to the shaman beforehand and we said, look, we're here. We made it all the way down here. We got cameras and stuff. You're going to have to give us a hero dose because we're not going to almost get there.
Yeah,
That would be a
for sure.
disappointment. So we
Yeah.
want to blast through. And he was like, okay, if that's what, yeah, I understand. So, you're going to do 3 cups in one and, go like that.
Ooh,
And so,
120. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
120 is a lot, Zappy.
yeah. So I went super deep. And in the movie, I talk about how I met God and I was able to ask a couple of questions. But one thing I didn't put in the movie, which was really the most profound moment of the whole thing for me, the life-changing moment, was that I was there with God and during this experience, and God spoke to me and God said, do you know how you're breathing right now? Do you know how you're growing your hair? Like you're doing it, but do you know how? And I thought about it and I was like, no, I don't know how. And then God said to me, then what makes you think I need your help?
Oh,
And I was like, oh, wow, God, this is great. Like I'm off the hook.
yeah.
How I don't even know how I'm breathing. Like, how am I supposed to get all upset because these people over here aren't listening to me? Like, I was like,
Hmm.
I'm free. And God was just like, just enjoy it.
Hmm.
And I came back into myself and all that. And I had the realization that you see in the movie that God is actually a woman and
Hmm.
society has completely got their whole thing wrong. But, it really freed me in a way that I didn't expect, where I was just sort of like, wow, I don't think I'm going to take anything seriously going forward. I think this is a real wake up call that I was taking life too seriously and I have to go a different direction in that way, not necessarily in a career way or philanthropy. It was more like, this is it, and you can just enjoy it or not. And so in that time, as you saw me maturing through those years and having experience where I have to integrate it back. And, as Ram Dass famously said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. And so you go back into your regular life and you're like, oh my God, like, how do I integrate this? But what happened was that I just got really passionate about telling people about plant medicine and wanting them to go to the jungle, which is what sort of spurred the next chapter of my life. But I want to tell you, interestingly, Michelle Rodriguez, she had an incredible experience where after the ayahuasca, we were still in Peru for several days and we hiked and, we did our integration and things like that. And she told me privately, she said, Zappy, she's like, I know what I got to do. I'm going to go back to Hollywood. And they've always invited me to go into the writer's room and be part of the writing team. She's like, but I always felt like a imposter. I'm an actress. What am I really going to add? She's like, but now I know that I have to add all of these women's parts. And women only speak like 4 times during the movie and they almost never speak to each other. So she's like, I'm going to go deeper with that right now. And she did it and she became, a bigger part of the franchise and more
Wow.
women's roles, bigger roles for them. And I saw that happen from the ayahuasca and I was just like, wow, like that's a huge shift, for
Hmm.
somebody to make in their life at that point.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
incredible.
So it was beautiful. And then I would say for me, I just started to rant about plant medicine to everybody. And I was quite annoying back in the original days when I came back. I could tell people like I come into the door and people like, oh shit, the plant medicine guy's here, like run, but I wised up. The ayahuasca did tell me at that time, it said, you need to go back and share this message because I have to come out in New York City and Los Angeles. Like people are really hurting. They can't come down to the jungle and spend 2 weeks like
Yeah.
you did. This has to come out. So just go do your thing and you'll have support in nature. And so I went out and I did that. And what happened was, oddly enough, the people that really needed the healing that I thought, they were the ones that couldn't really do it because they were saying to me, oh, Zappy, if I tell my family right now that I'm going to go sit with a shaman in the jungle, like they're going to Baker act me. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I'm going to go in a mental institution.
Right.
And I thought, wow, I really have to find a Western medicine approach where people can enter. And fast forward in 2015, I saw the ketamine, the research that came out of Yale on ketamine for depression. And I thought, wow, maybe that's it. That could be the one. And I convinced the doctor down here in Florida to give me the treatment of the Yale protocol. And as soon as it hit me 5 minutes into the infusion, I was like, this is it. This is what people can handle. It's FDA approved. You go to the doctor, and here it is. I am in that transcended state, just like I was when I was 5 hours, 6 hours into the ayahuasca. Here I am in 5 minutes, and I'm sitting in a doctor's office. I was like, this changes everything for
Wow.
me. And that became kind of my path from there.
Oh, really? Oh, so
Yeah.
when was that the last time that you took ayahuasca, or have you done it since?
No, I've done it several times more. About 6 months after we came back from Peru, Michelle Rodriguez and I, we wound up doing it together in California. And we just wanted to know, okay, is the medicine the same? The frequency, the Pachamama? We did it with some Brazilians that time who have a different tradition. We did a day one and a night one just to kind of try to see what was there. And for me, honestly, I could see that. I could feel that the frequency in Pachamama was in the medicine. And even though
Mm.
I was in the United States and it was different circumstances, it was mostly the same. I mean, I
Okay.
probably was deeper because in Peru, my phone didn't work for a week and a half. So I was more queued up, but I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like this can happen in Los Angeles because this is real. This is real healing. And so I did it a handful more times. The last time I did it was in Miami. It was about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I was with this group, a amazing group, some celebrities and all these people. And I go into it. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. And Pachamama shows up and she's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I'm just came to get, maybe some answers. She's like, I already showed you the answers. I already showed you everything. Like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I just was, I don't know. I don't know. And
Mm.
she's like, don't come back. She's like, don't come back for yourself. She's like, because I already showed you. And so she said, but if you need to bring somebody important to the medicine, by all means, bring them. You'll have an amazing time. She goes, but do not let me see you back here for you. And I was like, I
Wow.
won't be back. I promise. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow,
She was
that's
very
incredible.
specific. And I will tell you that the one other life-changing thing that happened to me after that was in 2015, I had pretty much done all the psychedelics that I'd been told about.
Mm.
And the only one I hadn't done was ibogaine. And
Oh,
I was
Oh
right.
like,
my.
ooh, this
Yeah, yeah.
African root that can break a heroin addiction in
Exactly.
one 12-hour, 24-hour session. I'm like, how is that even possible? It doesn't even make sense to me. I think I got to do ibogaine. And I wound up going
And,
down to
and
Costa Rica to do it.
your very close friend Jerry also had the experience with the ibogaine and then went to Costa Rica afterwards. The same experience.
Yeah, that's correct. Jerry
Okay.
Powell, who started
Yeah.
Rhythmia. Yeah, he's in the
Okay. Yeah.
movie and he did ibogaine. And that he was really my motivation because I was like, I think I got to do this. Like, I really,
Hmm.
I want to. So I wound up doing it in a traditional way, kind of like I did in Peru, going with the ayahuasca to go to Peru and be in the jungle. I went to do the ibogaine with a Bwiti shaman. The Bwitis are a tribe in Africa that in Gabon that use the ibogaine, which comes from the iboga plant.
Hmm.
Ibogaine and iboga are basically the same thing. The iboga is like the full plant spectrum where you just eating the root bark, where the ibogaine, they've isolated one alkaloid in there, the ibogaine alkaloid. And so they give you one pill and it's 1,000 milligrams. So you take that. And I had the most life-changing experience doing ibogaine because the Bwiti tribe, they use this iboga as they're an ancestor-based religion. So they use it to get in touch with their ancestors. And basically, when you go in there, you do an entire life review and you are going into your lineage and you're actually seeing different things that you don't even realize are affecting you, are triggering you in this world. And you're like, why am I getting triggered by this certain thing? But it's like, that's your great, 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 great grandfather's trauma that's in your DNA that you don't even know is there. And then here I see the situation, I clear it, and now it's like I wiped the Akashic record going forward and backward for whatever was happening. And so profound, the lessons that I learned there. And for anybody that doesn't know, the ayahuasca is like this grandmother energy, and she's hugging you. And even when it gets really intense, you kind of feel like, oh, spirit's with me, And the ibogaine and the iboga, this is like the grandfather. So this is your angry grandfather who you say, "What's wrong with me?" And he kicks you into the fire, It's like, figure it out, And you're like, no. But
Wow.
it's very in your face, but also, and you guys will appreciate this, it's the technology of it is kind of a mind blower because you're taking this African root that's thousands of years old, and some of the things that are happening are so futuristic, how this whole thing is being presented to you that you're just like, how is this African root showing me sci-fi stuff that I've never even seen in a movie? You know what I mean? Like how,
Yeah.
and so it's a mystery, but it does an incredible job of healing you both physically and mentally. So you come out, and the research says that after you do ibogaine, you are physiologically 1.3 years younger than you were in the hours before you did it.
Wow.
Yeah, and wow, I figured out how it breaks a heroin addiction. It is gonna show you,
Yeah.
where your blind spots are about yourself.
Well, that's fascinating. I wasn't sure that I kind of figured that ibogaine would be for someone with maybe a serious addiction issue and like it should be treated as a treatment. And I hadn't thought to think of it as an experience that would heal generational trauma, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Certainly for both of us, kind of experiencing that. That's really
Yeah,
surprising.
it is. It's always sort of been billed as this because what happened was in the 1960s, there was a guy named Howard Lotsoff who was a research scientist, and he wound up getting addicted to heroin. And he heard about ibogaine. He got some ibogaine and he cured his addiction. He was like, wow, like this is crazy, started to do a lot of work on it. And the door shut on ibogaine. They put it on Schedule 1 back in the 60s or the early 70s so that you couldn't research it or anything like that. So it's
Wow.
really tragic because you hear about all these veterans and it's changing their life from trauma or addiction and these things, but they have to wind up going to Mexico. And it's really sad, that it's basically like the drug and alcohol treatment center rehab business. They're built on people failing and coming back multiple
Yeah.
times and getting paid
Right.
by the insurance company 2, 3, 4 times. So they don't want ibogaine to come out where 12 hours later you're like, you're good,
Hmm.
Uh, and I have probably my best testimonial is from Lamar Odom, the basketball player
Yeah.
Kardashian.
Yeah.
I have a movie out with him about
That's
a
your movie on
psychedelic intervention.
Netflix. That's your
Uh,
movie.
no, that one's coming out. That's sort of a recap of
Oh,
what
okay.
what we did. Mine's called Lamar Odom Reborn, and it's kind of like you're a fly on the wall in his intervention.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, he had never done psychedelics before. I was screening my movie, The Reality of Truth, at different places around the country. And somebody came up after a screening and they said, "Hey, I'm friends with Lamar Odom. He's not in a good place right now. Would you be willing to, talk to him about plant medicine?" I was like, absolutely.
Wow.
So I spoke to him and his crew, and I realized that he's got a lot of trauma, childhood trauma. His mother died of cancer when he was 12 years old in front of him. He had a 6-month-old son pass away, and he's just like never dealt with the trauma. He was just trying to stay busy or buzzed and not to deal with it and sit there and think about it. And so I knew that I couldn't. I knew he needed ibogaine because of his addiction profile, but I knew I couldn't lead with that because they would have just said, no, that's too radical to go to Mexico and do some, experimental thing.
Right.
So I brought him to a ketamine doctor and had him do a ketamine session first. And he went inside and he had such an incredible experience. He was like, oh my God, like this is real healing. I always was told never to touch psychedelics or go crazy, but he's like, this is amazing. Like I need this. I feel like I'm getting smarter as I do it. So I brought him to all the top clinics in the United States. And once he got really comfortable with me, he said, okay, I think I'm ready for the next step. And I said, well, you have an addiction profile. There's this African root called ibogaine, and you're an African American guy. Like maybe you're supposed to be taking this, but you've been cut off culturally. I think you got to do it. And he was like, let's do it. And we got in the van. We drove down to Mexico. We
Oh, wow.
went to Ambio, where Conor McGregor just went,
Right.
and all these folks. And we did it. And he had an absolute breakthrough transformation, Lamar did, which led to, and as I said, it does a physical and a mental reboot. So on the mental reboot, he got to hear his mother's voice for the first time in, almost 30 years. He got to see his son. You see in the movie, he says he saw his son who passed away at 6 months old, got to see him then got to see him grow to be 8 or 9 years old and played with him. And then he became a teenager, the age he would be today. And he got to hang out with him as a teenager. And he's just like whatever happens the rest of my life, I'm fine, And so he came back and he reconnected with his kids and lives with them now and all that. But also the physical was so dramatic, this physiological reverse aging, that 48 hours after he had the ibogaine, we were headed back towards LA and we were in the van. And it's kind of in the movie, but he goes, I feel so good. He goes, mentally and physically. He goes, I think even though I'm 40 years old, I think I can make a comeback in professional basketball. And we were like, wow, that's cool. And his bodyguard trainer was with us, and the guy's like, Lamar, dude, take it easy, man.
Yeah.
You're old.
That's the
You can't
big
be
leagues,
smoking marijuana. You'd have to work out 4 or 5 hours a day. And Lamar was like, no, I know what I got to do. I'm going to do it. And nobody motivating him. He just worked out for like 6-7 months. And he wound up playing in a professional game in Dubai for the Philippines team. And it was like his Rocky moment for himself,
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm not the same player. I can't play in the NBA, but he's like, just, I'm supposed to be dead. And like, here I am, on the court. So,
Yeah.
that's the kind of transformation. And then my best testimonial ever, he called me about 2 days or so after Kobe Bryant died, who he played with, who's like an older brother to him. And he called me up and he's like, Zappy, you guys, I just got to tell you this. He goes, the night that Kobe died, he goes, I knew that night, as a lifetime drug addict, that I could use drugs and everybody was going to give me a pass on it. And he goes, but since the day of the ibogaine, he goes, I just didn't have the desire to do it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow, like that is, hold on, say that again. Hold on.
Yeah. They're gonna record.
Yeah.
Hold the phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's really special because I think, the opportunity we have with these plants is absolutely amazing. And, the fact that with the fentanyl crisis that's happening, it's like, these aren't drug addicts that are getting addicted. These are just regular people who are having like a surgery or an injury, and then they get on pain pills and they run out and they try to get some more and they're laced with fentanyl. Now they're addicted to fentanyl. how are we going to break that? There's no other way other than ibogaine and to, take the plants as a medicine. And so it's just a really special time that we have science and, universities doing studies and states doing studies now, like Texas and all these others doing ibogaine research, because I think the government just is throwing up their hands and they're like, we don't know what would work, and it's not going to work to do antidepressants and talk therapy anymore. So let's let people, experiment right now, see what
There's
works.
something really powerful too with the plant medicine, in that with like a lot of other drugs that is like really kind of, I guess, like muting or subduing pain. With the plant medicine, I don't feel like it does that same thing. Like, you actually feel more intensely like everything.
Yeah.
And so it's not really addictive, even though there's relief after, but it like brings you into that emotional body and feeling what's actually present for you. And I think so much of our addiction and just our lives as human beings, as you've sort of pointed to, is us trying to outrun our feelings or outrun our pain or outrun our past trauma or ancestral trauma or whatever it is. And we're staying busy, or we're drinking, or we're just like trying to not feel all the things.
Or doing Ashtanga yoga for 30 years.
Right. Or doing like very intense spiritual practices, right? Like meditating for hours a day.
Trying to learn how to endure feeling rather than deal with feeling.
Yeah, and it's all like a bypass around actually just being able to be with that feeling and that pain or that memory, and realizing that you're not going to die from feeling it. And actually it kind of relieves it. It lets it open.
You nailed it. I mean, I think, for me, what psychedelics do, the value of it for me is that they always reconnect me with the fact that I'm in a miracle right now, and whether I want to choose to believe it or not, the sun is 93 million miles away, perfect for us to have an atmosphere. And I'm on the phone in real time video to China. Like, it's like, this is a miracle,
Yeah.
But people are like so jaded that they're like, oh, I need a burning bush or something. This isn't the right sign for me. And so when I come back from my psychedelic experience, even a psilocybin journey or a DMT or whatever, I come back and I'm like, oh, wow, I am so glad to be back in this miracle. I gotta just take advantage. If I'm gonna be in this 3D suit where I can taste chocolate and feel pain, like I'm in a miracle. I'm going to live this thing like it's a miracle. And then I come back to what, God told me, what she said about just enjoy it. Like, it's perfect, and that the fact that I don't even know how I'm breathing. I don't do that for 2 minutes. I die. Like, what am I don't know, And so for me, I've adapted this thing where I'm trying to be in gratitude as much as I can, because I think that's the highest frequency vibration. A lot of times people say love is the highest frequency. I don't think so, because I know people that love, I don't know, Hitler probably loved his dog, and, these horrible people love this person or that. It's not so, but I think to be in gratitude when you're in a game of life where you don't even know what it's about, you don't know what the rules are, you don't know why you're here, and you don't know what happens next. But if in that you can be grateful, I think that's how you're going to be judged. It's not going to be what deeds did you do, because we all do deeds that, maybe are for our ego, even if we don't admit it. But if you're here and you're grateful and you're looking at God and you passed away and you're like, okay, I think you're going to be scored by how grateful were you to be in that game, even though you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. If I could have played with Michael Jordan with no idea what I was going on, I would have loved being in that game. That would have been amazing.
Yes.
And here we are playing with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one experiential question about ibogaine?
Sure.
You smoke it?
No, you take it as in a pill form. It's like
that's right.
You're taking the root bark and swallowing pills of root bark, or you're taking just the isolate, so you have 1,000 milligrams of the ibogaine alkaloid.
So
you
then
swallow it.
I imagine then there's a period of, like, say 40 minutes while you metabolize, and then Can I ask, is it like ayahuasca or psilocybin where there's a or LSD where there's a kind of sense like, okay, things are starting to get a little bright and fuzzy,
Uh,
bouncy, and then you sink into like a fractalized space?
it's different than that. Takes a good hour to come on at least, and
Hmm.
I had one of those crazy experiences where they gave me the 1,000 milligrams. Everybody's starting to go into their journey. You're laying down with an eye shade on, but in the Bwiti practice, it's very interactive with the shaman. You can ask him questions. Even
Right,
in the
yeah.
journey, you could ask him questions about what you're experiencing. And so, about an hour and 10 minutes into it, I'm like, it's just not hitting. And the guy's like, all
Mm.
right, well, I'm going to give you another one, maybe metabolize. So he gives me the other one. And about 5 minutes later, I'm just laying there, right? And I got the eye shade on and stuff, and I'm sitting there, I'm laying there, and then I look up at the ceiling and the roof, I see the stars and everything, and I'm like, oh wow, like that's so cool of my friend to put a retractable roof on this Maloka. That's so wow, how high end that
That's great.
is. And then I was like, oh my God, like I pull up my eye shades, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in it. And then I was like trying to gag the second one out, and I was
Uh-oh.
like, oh
Oh
no,
no, it's
no,
too late, man.
way too late. So
Yeah. Mm.
what happens with iboga is that, and ibogaine is when it hits, there's this frequency of like 1 million bees going, and
Hmm.
you're this vibration that's like
Yeah.
super intense. And then, you kind of break into it where you're in the full, they call it awakened dreams, is what the Bwiti call it. And in awakened dreams, the best way I can describe it, and I've had this confirmed by a lot of people, is it's like you're in the eye of a hurricane and everything's like calm right where you are, but there's this hurricane going around and it's all these images of your life and everybody. And then you look at something, you go, oh, what's that? And you're drawn into it, and then you find yourself experiencing, re-experiencing, or seeing it from a third party perspective, or watching a movie in a movie theater about you, and you're just like, what is going on here? And it's kind of like when you get in there, if you go towards something and then you're like, oh, I don't want to look at that, you can kind of like go somewhere else. So it's like, it's up to you kind of to tailor your journey for what you need to see. And I had, a few absolutely, mind blowing experiences. One of them was that the shaman had told me before I went down there, he said, you're going to meet people at the soul level. So these could be people that are dead or alive. He's like, I want you to come up with a list of 3 people that you would like to have a conversation with at the soul level. Let me know when you get down here who you chose. And so I was like, oh, I would love to talk to my grandfather. That would be amazing. Oh man, Einstein, Buddha, Jesus, oh man, I just thought about it a little bit. And I was on the plane, I'm flying to Costa Rica, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm like, oh, I never chose the 3 people. I never really locked in on that. And I look up on the little TV that was playing on the screen, and it was playing Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley. And I was like, oh, Chris Farley, he'd be a cool guy to meet.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
I
Why,
put him
Chris?
down.
Why?
Mhm.
What happened that night, Chris?
Oh my God.
Oh, what a
So,
terrible night he had.
so
Mm.
what happens to me is I'm 6 hours or more into this journey, and it's just one thing after the other that you're involved in these scenes, and then they change to something else, and now you're involved in that. And so I am interacting with shaman, and I was like, things get a little weird too. So I was like a little nervous. I was just like, I found myself walking through this town, and I was like, and I wanted to go inside because it kind of was getting dark and a little creepy outside. So I said to the shaman, I go, should somebody's, waving me into this building. Should I go in the building? And the shaman said, what kind of building is it? And I said, I don't know, like a government or something. He's like, not too much structure. Keep going, keep going. I was like, I'm walking down the road and I see this cul-de-sac, and I go down the cul-de-sac and I look, and there's a house there. It's got a big pane glass window with a light on in there. It looks like there's a bunch of people in there. I said to the shaman, I think there's a party going on in this house. Should I go in there? He's like, sure, go in. And I go, okay. So I go into the house, and everything's so real. It's like as real as I'm here right now, you know? So I go in, I wave to some of the people, hey, how's it going? And walk in. I walk through to the kitchen and I look to the back of the kitchen through the doors to where the pool is. And Chris Farley is standing at the pool.
Amazing.
Oh my Lord.
And I'm like, oh, no way. And he's like, Zappy, come here, come here, come here. So we
I've got a
hang out.
bunch
We
of
have this.
cocaine, Zappy. You should try
Yeah, I
it.
know. We were like having the best time. Like we are going crazy, you know?
Wow.
And we hear people laughing inside and we are like, hey, let's go inside. Let's, we can be clowns inside, you know? So we go inside and we walk in and there's all these people and they're kind of surrounding this one person and they're saying what they think is jokes, but it was like really mean, you know, it kept getting darker. It was like, and that's why your wife left you, and everybody's laughing and all this stuff. And Chris Farley and I were looking at each other like, what are these people laughing at, you know? And Chris Farley said to me in that moment, he goes, you know what, Zappy? He goes, I just realized something. He goes, you can't try to make everybody laugh because listen to what these people are laughing at. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. I go, that's probably what killed you, right? And he goes, yeah. And then boom, I was in a whole different other scenario. And I was like, oh shit, like, wow,
Wow.
Good
that
God.
happened. And so just so many things like that are so vivid and so real that, it's shocking. And I want to give you one other description, if you don't mind, somebody else's journey.
Yeah, please.
A friend of mine in New York, they're a writer, kind of like a famous-ish writer. So they go out every night and they do their thing and they were drinking every night. And they realized at some point that they were an alcoholic. And they were like, oh my God, I got to break this. I think I'm going to do ibogaine because they were a bit of a psychonaut. And they went to do the ibogaine. And they told me that what happened to them, different than me, was it started to cycle them through every party that they had been to in New York. And the person saw that when they got to like the third drink and took like the second sip or something like that, that all of a sudden their energy changed, their frequency changed, and they became gross. And they were like groping women and saying rude stuff to people. And they were like, oh my God. Like, he said that the ibogaine cycled him through like 300 parties like that, where he got to see himself be horrible. And he was like, okay, I get it. I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again. And he goes, it cycled him through another 500 after he broke. And he's like, I came back to New York. He's like, I can go out. I can still go out 5 nights a week, but I can have a glass of wine. Maybe I'll drink half a glass. He's like, I would never even touch like that second one or third. I never would do it, And so that's how it does whatever it has to do in order for you to release, whatever that is. And, we all have addictions. It's the cool thing about the ibogaine is when it's over, during it wipes your prefrontal cortex. So you don't have any cravings for anything when you come out. So even if you've been drinking your whole life or 2 packs of cigarettes, heroin, whatever, you come out, you're like, I'm not touching that. Like it doesn't, I don't need that. That's not for me right now. So you have about a 3 to 6 month window to really like change your lifestyle where that could become permanent. Otherwise, perhaps you could fall back into some pattern. But, once you die like that and come back and have all those experiences, it's very difficult. You're kind of vibrating at your own frequency. So when somebody does offer you something that you would have taken in the past because either peer pressure or, hiding from yourself, you're just like, that doesn't resonate with me, not doing it. And it's like, you see these people, it's like, wow, like that, how did they do that? And that's the beauty of these compounds. They're from God. We have receptors in our brain for them. We must be supposed to interact with them or they wouldn't affect us at all.
Yeah, I have to say the example, and I know that Harmony and I are both like just in like chomping at the bit to talk about our experience with ayahuasca. But
You are.
we both are, and well, maybe it is just me. So but I really like the experience that your friend Jerry Powell had was so profound and transformative for what his experience was, to have placed him as a child and seeing the sexual molestation of his grandfather going back with his father to demand an apology from that man who I think had passed away already,
Yeah.
receiving that apology, and then changing his entire life, and then creating Rhythmia. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Rhythmia in Costa Rica. I mean, that's the kind of it's a Hollywood story. Like
Yeah.
it's not a believable unless you look at him there on Instagram living his best life, and it's incredible
Yeah.
to see.
I'll tell you one other tidbit that he isn't in the movie that he told me, which is amazing, is he said the first time he went and did ibogaine, he got that experience that you is in the movie. He said the second time he brought his sons down because he wanted them to experience it,
Oh,
and
right, yeah.
they had a great experience, but the medicine came to him and said, "Okay, Jerry, you're going to open the first licensed plant medicine place in the world." And it said, "You're going to open it in Guanacaste, Costa Rica." And it said, "You're going to pay $3.6 million for it." And Jerry was like, "Wow, that's weird. That's kind of
Very
specific, you
specific.
know?" And so he said he went down to Costa Rica. He went to Guanacaste. He looked around. Nothing was in that price range. He found the place that that is Rhythmia today, this resort, and he got the tour and everything. He went in, and the people, he said, "What's up with this place?" And they said, "Well, it's 80 rooms, and the comps here in Guanacaste are about 80,000 rooms. So we're asking 6.4 million for the place." And
Mhm.
Jerry goes, "Would you take 3.6 million?" And they go, "Yeah, we take 3.6." And he's like,
Wow.
ibogaine just saved me $3 million. You know, he's like, I would have paid 8 million or something. But wow,
Ooh.
thank you, ibogaine.
Wow,
I
that's
was on I
incredible.
was on Jerry's Instagram, and there was a video of the comic Ron White talking about going down there to fix his addiction issues, and he said, it's expensive, but it wasn't no $100,000 that I've spent on a treatment. So, and he said he took the medicine, and then they said, you'll know when to come back inside. And he's lying out in a hammock, and he's like, yeah, this is just like mushrooms. And then he said, all of nature in the forest, I just swallowed into my mouth. And so I figured it was time for me to go back inside.
Wow.
I
Wow.
was like, wow, wow,
It,
Ron. Wow.
yeah, it
Mm.
is amazing. I want to hear a little bit about your ayahuasca experience because I know, they're so deep and it changes you. That's
Yeah.
the other part of this is that who you were the other day, the Freddie Puma, the shaman in my movies, like, in one day, ayahuasca can take you from who you are to a whole different person in just
Hmm.
one journey, and I don't know, did you feel like you tapped into more of your feminine energy?
For me?
Well,
Either of you got
you've got a
both of you.
big feminine energy. I wanted to say that I played football as a kid like you, but I got out of football. I got an injury, and I started taking a lot of psychedelics with my brother, and was having an amazing time. And then I had like a King Kong bad trip when I was 17, and it freaked me out. And I describe it as a psychotic break. I now describe it as a deep learning and healing experience.
Yes.
But I had been scared my entire adult life, 30 years, of going that deep again and going
Mhm.
into that again, and I tried to avoid anything that'd be like that. And
Mhm.
so this journey that I'm on with Harmony, where she's encouraging me to take every psychedelic again, we've been kind of cautious, and I've been trying to be careful, and I've been trying to really be respectful about integration, about set and setting, respectful about integration afterward, learning, really being humble in the moment. But motherfucker, this bitch took me right back into it right away. Took me right the fuck back into the King Kong bad trip, and then said, hey, deal with it.
Yeah.
We were integrating afterward, and I did come out of it, and I was ultimately fine. I didn't spend hundreds of years there like I did the first time, but I came back out of it. And Harmony said to me, like, what does this experience remind you of? And I said, well, It's like I get this sizzling sound. I feel held and trapped by the neck, and then I'm locked in this room infinitely. That's how it feels. She said, well, doesn't that remind you of something? I was like, huh? And she said, well, really, like, your experience as a baby is kind of unique. Oh, I'm a Coke
Wow.
baby.
Wow.
What the Panchamaya Mama took me into, what the psychedelics took me into, is my first experience as a conscious being, which is, holy fuck, why am I high on Coke right now? I have no
Wow.
idea what's going
Wow.
on. I'm high as a kite. I'm sizzling. I'm trapped in a box I can't get out of. I'm taking 16 lines a day. And I have no
Wow.
fucking clue why I'm doing it. I'm
Wow.
5 pounds. Why?
Wow.
So for me, this experience was a profound realization of what I've been most afraid of. I feel like I've faced death. I've faced the thing that I'm most frightened of. Like, I can take on anything now
Yeah,
because
beautiful.
I've seen it and I
Yeah.
know what it is.
I think it's amazing that, while it throws you into your worst fear, you do feel like, Pachamama and the spirit is with you during it, so like, because I had the same thing, they call it little death. And of course, my fear of death was somewhere there. And then all of a sudden I was sitting in the room and I'm having this kaleidoscope. And then I was like, holy shit, I think I'm dead. I think I died, like, and I was pretty sure I did, and I was like, wow.
Hmm.
But I looked around in that moment and I was like, if this is death, this is very dynamic. This is like wild. Like I could kind of be here forever. This wouldn't be bad. But, part of me was like, I do want to come back because I think I have something to do here to share this experience. But to that point, I mean, it's going to give you what you need. It's not going to give you what you want. And I even went in, I want to, have a vision for what I'm supposed to do. And it just, through the kicking of my ass
Yeah.
by my grandmother, I emerged like, oh, I think I know what I need to do. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
make a movie out of this and see what happens. And so,
Yeah. My journey was actually kind of how you described sort of
Ibogaine.
going into ibogaine, like
Yeah.
a lot. Like I was sitting sort of in the center of a tornado, and every once in a while would get kind of pulled into a particular vision
Ancestry.
and a lot of it was ancestral. A lot of it felt very ancestral, and even like Pachamama was like, "Oh, you're going to clear some things for your mother. Oh, you're clearing
mhm.
things for your grandmother." Like it was
Yeah,
very specific and
wow.
clear.
And abuse
Uh-huh.
stories too.
Yeah. Things I think
Wow.
that I was probably holding in my body for a long time just from past generational trauma.
Yeah. Well, one of the crazy things about the ibogaine is that the ibogaine is going to show you exactly. It's,
Hmm.
I always say, ayahuasca, it's like, there's a lot of integration to do because you're like, why did my mother turn into a snake? Like, what is that all about, But in the ibogaine, it's so clear. It's literally going to tell you what you need to do, and show
Yeah.
you what you have to do. And so for some of my friends, one friend in particular, she was in an abusive relationship. She was considering killing herself and she wound up going and doing ibogaine. And when she was in the ibogaine, it said, you need to get your husband, have him meet with you, and give him this exact speech. And she was like, oh, okay, And then she left and she went back to the States after her journey and it wasn't wearing off. And she was like, about 2 weeks later, she's freaking out because it's just like every time she closes her eyes, she's in the ibogaine experience and she
Yeah.
hadn't slept in almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so she called up the shaman and she's like, I don't know what to do. I think I'm stuck. I think this is permanent. And the guy said, well, what did the ibogaine tell you to do? Did you do it? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, you better do it because like I don't think you're getting out until you do. And she called up
Wow.
her husband, gave him the exact speech, and he didn't fight at all. He just said, I got it, I get it. And he walked out and that was it. So, and then she said as soon as he left, she just like slumped over and went to bed for like, a day and a half and then was
Wow.
coming out. And the cool part about the ibogaine is that when you do finally surrender, there's a period after where you're very, very tired, but you can't fall asleep because your brain is very active still. And it's very frustrating. And then once you eventually go to sleep, when you wake up, all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, like I'm a fresh human being right now. I'm younger. It's now more than 10 years later, and I wake up in the morning and I feel the ibogaine in me. I'm like, oh yeah, I still got it. Oh yeah, this is good. So it's very, these are special, special things. And thankfully, we're living in a time and in a place where you have science and everything to be able to do these things. And so I just feel like we're really blessed.
Yeah, I feel like the plant medicines really like are bringing you back to yourself, but also like back to a deeper connection with the earth. They're
Yes.
like in all of my journeys, there's a very deep, deep connection to the earth and an understanding that we are the earth, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have experienced San Pedro. It's a cactus. When you do San Pedro, you're instantly connected to nature. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, you see like the grass flowing into you and you going into the grass. And you're like, and I always recommend it for people like live in the city and never put their feet on grass or sand or something like that. They get disconnected from nature, and all they have to do is San Pedro, maybe a San Pedro microdose, and it just connects you to nature. And then for a long time, you're very connected to nature, and it's a different life when you're connected to nature than you do.
My understanding is that if you don't have access to a First Nation ceremony to do peyote, and you still would like to try mescaline, then San Pedro is that opportunity.
It's a beautiful medicine. I would totally recommend it. It's kind of like they always say that ayahuasca is the mother, San Pedro's the father, and iboga is the grandfather. And maybe the mushrooms are like the mischievous cousins over here, doing their mischievous thing. So,
Oh, THC is a trickster god, in my opinion. Oh dear, she and I both, we've always struggled with it. But I also feel like now, after what happened with Punch Up Mama, like what could scare me now?
well said. Yeah, that's how I felt like I died, and once you don't fear death, almost nothing is very scary. But the illusion is really good, this Maya that we're in. So
Yes.
sometimes
Yeah,
you forget and you're like, oh my God, I'm separate from everyone.
yeah.
Uh,
I
this
don't want to be captured by an ICE van and then tortured in some compound for the next 6 months. That would be more scary than death.
absolutely. But if I was, I would be appreciative that I had some of these psychedelic experiences, because to be able to go back into those veins, within
Yeah.
yourself, and even my meditation, I'm really lucky. Somebody taught me to meditate like 30 years ago, a mantra-based meditation. And now, because of my psychedelic experiences, I close my eyes and I don't even have to do my mantra. I just slide into some track that's in there that I know goes deep, and I'm transcended immediately. And so I don't think I would have that if it wasn't for these experiences.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of times people say, oh, you don't need any medicine. You could just breathe or meditate. And I'm like, you know what? In a perfect world, yes, but not with this much
Yeah.
information and technology and,
If yeah, if you're hanging
crazy.
out in the prairies of the Serengeti for
Yeah.
years with no television,
Yeah,
probably doesn't take much to get really high. Just saying
that's
there.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the Psychedelic Concierge. So you've like
Oh,
created
yeah.
this entire network.
This really came out of what I see as right now the biggest need that we have, because you got apparently you got 39 million people in the United States who've identified as psychedelic curious, and about 70% of
Wow,
those people
that's
said they
10%.
yeah. And 70% of those people said they would like to be guided when they do it. But there's really nobody to guide you. If you go on the internet and you're like, okay, I'm curious about psychedelics, you pull up the Google search, it's going to be like 5 ayahuasca places and 2 mushroom places in Jamaica. And you're like, oh, I guess I need to do ayahuasca. But,
Guess I'm going to Canada.
yeah, or go to Canada. But it
And
was
you
like,
don't necessarily want to just like hang out with like the neighbor in his garage or something, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So
like you don't want the garage shaman showing up.
do not want that one. I plead with people, like, do not order ayahuasca on the internet, and like,
Yeah.
But so when you're faced with that, you think that's your choice. But when you have real understanding of these compounds, you realize that they each do something different and incredible. They have different energies. Ibogaine for addiction, San Pedro to connect you with nature, microdose psilocybin to get some joy back, on and on. And so I realized, well, we need people who can talk to somebody, figure out what their intention is, what traumas they're trying to overcome, and then make a recommendation accurately based on what they really need, not just like what they find on the internet. And there just wasn't enough of that. And so I put together a program with a team. It's a really amazing, accredited. We go into all the medicines, the ethics, the trauma informed healing, how to guide groups and integrate people, prep them. And so you get this very full education. And then you have to do a certain number of practicum hours where you're either sitting with medicine or guiding and doing journeys and things like that. And then you have to do a capstone project for the certification, basically what you learned and how you're going to implement it into the world. And so we've got a really dynamic group of people from around the world now that are in this psychedelic concierge training program. But the community is so dynamic because there's all different people. Some are researchers at universities, some own retreat centers, some are trip sitters, all across the spectrum. So if you don't know about a certain medicine or don't have expertise, you're going to know well enough about that the person needs it, but you're also going to have a contact and relationship that is high conscious, well trained, and somebody that you can feel good sending somebody. So all the collaboration that's already happening, the retreats that are taking place, it's so dynamic that we all love it because it's kind of like you guys, like you could fit in there in 2 seconds because you're vibrating at a certain frequency. And we're just kind of going around finding all these people that are vibrating at our frequency right now. And we're collaborating and we're learning from each other. And it's so fun. And to have these kind of conversations every week on Zoom and, go deep with each other. We've even had there's a ketamine, medical ketamine. They have a lozenge that melts in your mouth, goes into your mucosa. Wow. And I've been doing a lot of ceremonies with that because it's FDA approved and people can, do it and the doctor can be involved. But
I'm a little cautious about injecting it. I'm a little bit nervous about that part. Yeah. So a lozenge sounds amazing.
Yeah, the lozenge is it's so peaceful. It is amazing. Because ketamine, I'm going to tell you a couple of things about ketamine is number one, people think it's a synthetic and it's not. It's actually derived from a salt. So they take some salts and some minerals and they process it. And this micro ketamine crystal grows. And so people are like, yeah, but they process it. And I'm like, yeah, but they process ayahuasca. They take the vine and the leaf and you have to make a tea. Like it's the same thing. It's natural from the earth. So like, don't get caught up in that. And then secondly, a lot of people hear that people abuse ketamine in nightclubs and things like that. And they're snorting it up their nose. And when you snort anything, it goes through your nasal cavity and it hits your opiate receptors. So it really can be very addictive, snorting ketamine, and it hits your ocular nerve and it's very disorienting and everything. But when you do the medical ketamine, a lozenge, even an IV, there's no addictive response. It is
Is that right?
Yeah. And while all the other psychedelics are hallucinogenics, the ketamine is actually a dissociative. So it's actually just separating your left and right brain and allowing them to communicate however they want without your ego getting involved in it. So
Interesting.
it's really cool because, even the lozenge, you have a technique for switching around so it goes more into your mucosa rather than through your stomach. And 10 minutes in, it hits, you're laying down with an eye shade on, and all of a sudden, all the chatter that's in your mind, it just goes away. And you find yourself in this present moment awareness where you're like, oh, wow, this is what silence is like. It's so peaceful and it's so beautiful. You can have visions and things, but not hallucinations. There's no walls melting and all kinds of crazy
I thought it would
stuff.
be like very fractalized. Okay.
No, it's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. Time slows down. It feels like you might have been in there for 1,000 years, and you're connected to your lineage. And then when you come out, the cool part is it wears off after like 35 minutes. And then we'll lay there for another almost an hour, just in the best meditation of your life. Like after yoga, when you're laying there in the corpse pose and you're like this, you're like, I don't want to get up. And then they make you leave after like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
This is like better than that, but it's, you know, for an hour, you're just like, oh my God, this is what real peace feels like. And then the cool part is the science on ketamine is that in the hours after, regardless of what happened during the journey, in the hours after, the ketamine metabolizes and grows new neural pathways in your brain around trauma and depression patterns that, you know, maybe you inherited, maybe you damaged them using drugs, or maybe they're just patterns that people are like, nobody loves me, life's not going to work out. And they filter everything through this. And so ketamine, the number one side effect of ketamine is it breaks suicidal ideation immediately. You come out. I've had people with, you know, come to clinics that I've been involved with, the bandages on their wrists where they actively tried, and they get the ketamine and they walk out and they're just like, I'm not suicidal. Like, I am so intrigued right now, and there's something going on that's bigger than my five senses, and I'm just going to see this thing out. And so it's very special. We're so lucky that this has been found, and that mushrooms have been around for tens of thousands of years. Millions of people have taken mushrooms, but, you know, it's only been 50 years or whatnot since ketamine's been isolated and people have been doing it. And so there's, you know, there might be, I don't know, 100,000 people out of 8 billion and everybody who lived before that that never experienced this.
But
and
millions of horses, Zappy.
Yes.
Think about the horse community and what they've contributed to our culture.
Yeah, no, it's true. I thought up a really funny commercial that was going to be the horses talking. They're like, hey, bummer about this ketamine shortage. The humans found out this stuff works for depression. Like, this sucks, you know?
Now all the horses are depressed.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was such an interesting thing in my Aya journey is I would see all these horses running. And then like later on, like the couple of weeks since the journey, is this connection of horses to like spirit, and like it just started, like all these like insights started dropping in around horses and spirit, and like the movement of spirit and the energy and the like freedom and the, I don't know, it was very cool.
I have a feeling if you did the iboga or the ibogaine, you would probably see yourself in some reincarnated time in the past, or whenever it was, you know, you were like some horse tribe or native tribe, First Nation type person that, you know, it's really still close to you, and you kind of put it out of your head.
I have this feeling because I've had a very intense allergy to horses since I was a child, but I loved horses when I was a child. Loved them.
That's an
but
irony.
Almost died several times.
Wow.
I feel like it's a past life thing.
Yes. Yeah. Like you got trampled by one or something.
Yeah,
you know?
something.
Yeah.
You know, I took a group, some of my psychedelic concierge people, my ex-wife and her best friend, about 4 weeks ago. We went down to Mexico and they did a traditional iboga buiti ceremony with iboga, and they did 2 ceremonies of it. I was so impressed with them because I know how deep it is and how intense. And, you know, the first time you do it, and then you're going to do it 2 days later, you're just like, there's no way I'm doing that, you know? And then 2 days later, you're like, I think I'm doing it. I'm watching them now 4 weeks later, and their energy is like so much more zen, and they really feel like they're vibrating at their right frequency now. And so that's really cool. And, you know, that's part of this psychedelic concierge, just to tie back to their, you know, training people to understand what medicine would be good for somebody based on what they're going through, understanding how to integrate, because integration is like the shamans say, the medicine does half the work and you have to do the other half after. Yeah. Well, that, if you can have somebody guide you and integrate you and help you to ask the right questions, you can get a lot more out of the journey. And a lot of people that don't have integration, of course, you see these people going ayahuasca every weekend and you're like, what are you doing? What's going on? And they're like, well, no, I got to go deeper. And like, no, you don't have to go deeper. You just have to like integrate this into your
Learn
life
the
now.
lesson.
So, yeah.
That was one of the things that I took away from MDMA, which I'm not sure is maybe it's a part of your program, but
Yep.
I took it 5 times in the 90s and just felt like it was always there with me the rest of my life. Like I just always felt like, oh, I can feel MDMA just right now if you just give me a second and I'll
Yeah.
just sink back into my physical body and I can feel trust and safety and the ability to speak truth to someone that I'm with.
Mm.
And that's also been my experience with psychedelics is that it's a kind of thing that doesn't feel that is something that I will ever abuse. It's just
Mhm.
something that you learn from and doesn't change you, but it changes a perspective.
That's beautiful. And, I think it's because the basis of everything, we are just frequency, energy and frequency. We're using our five senses and we mute it down so that you look like a human and I can deal with this right now. But really, everything's frequency going on.
Yeah.
And so when you take a mushroom, it has a certain frequency, you put it into your frequency, and now you have to synthesize that. And I think from doing that kind of journey work, having that frequency in you, even the MDMA from years and years, you have that in you. So you can tap back into that. And, I've had many, many times where some friends were going through a really hard time as a couple, and they were going to break up and get divorced or whatever it was. And I said, sit down here in these two chairs right here. And I take an MDMA tab and I crack it in half. I give them each half. I stay with them for a little bit. I work them through. And then at some point, I just see it happen where they reconnect with, like,
Yeah.
at the soul level. They find that thing that they love in the other person. They get it again. And then I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys. I'm like, they're good. And I think we could literally cut the divorce rate in this country in half if
Mm.
when you said, I want to get divorced, they were like, no problem. Go ahead and schedule your MDMA session to make sure you
Right.
really want to.
Yeah. Spend the afternoon together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Find
true
that
actually.
spark.
Yeah, that's a that would be really good protocol.
Yeah.
I
I'm,
mean,
if I
I
get in power, I'm doing it.
I have to say that, I got with Harmony just because she was really fucking cute. And if you had told me 10 years later that we would be having like just the wildest psychedelic experiences and she would be the person that I know who's been the fucking highest person I've ever met, I would have bet you $100,000 that was not true. That would not have turned out this way. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. We're having a crazy time together and it's been
Yeah.
amazing. It's been an
I can
amazing
tell.
journey.
I can tell. That's awesome. I wanted to also say that there is a tipping point moment coming up here, and it could be today or tomorrow, that people aren't totally aware of, which is that the DEA recently asked Health and Human Services to make a recommendation on rescheduling psilocybin off of Schedule 1, because
Good.
Schedule 1 means no medical benefit,
Yep.
highly addictive. So all the things on there are like crack and heroin, but they put all the psychedelics on there. So now that they're acknowledging basically that cannabis, marijuana has medical benefit, they rescheduled it down to Schedule 3 recently in the United States.
Yep.
And I believe they're about to do the same thing with psilocybin. But what's unique is that because psilocybin has already had a phase 1 clinical trial, it's going to be available for people to use under the Right to Try Act, which was like for cancer drugs. The idea was if something has a phase 1 clinical trial and it's been proven to be safe enough, even if there's no other data, you have the right to try it. You cannot
Mm.
sue anybody if it goes wrong, but it's your right to try it. And because psilocybin's had that phase 1 clinical, it's going to be available. And I'm predicting that probably 10 or 20 million people in the United States are about to do psilocybin in the next 12 or 18 months. And it's going to
Wow.
change. Everything is going to shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love psilocybin. I think it's such a heart opener. It's so beautiful. It's like
Yeah.
just like empathy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of going for that drink at the end of the day, if
Yeah.
you
I think you could just
microdose,
like
then I just feel good.
change your
I
habits
feel
Yeah.
fine.
You
completely.
will. Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said this. I'm stealing it from him, but he's just said, like, the reality is that everybody's just trying to balance their nervous system. So you go throughout the day and you're like, oh, I'll put some coffee in there. Oh, I'm going to take a drink. I'll take an Ambien. I got to just get balanced. But when you're microdosing psilocybin, I've noticed that you wake up and you're like, I'm balanced. Like, I don't need any coffee right now. And then you go later, you're like, I don't need a drink. You're already balanced. And so I think to work on yourself, to get neuroplasticity for yourself, where your brain is not as rigid in these patterns. So when bad things happen, which they do in life, that it's not hitting some rigid pattern. It's just sort of going in there. And then, nowadays, now that I'm older, I realize, looking back, that many of the things that I thought were the worst thing to happen to me, that were like going to ruin my life, were actually the best things, the best thing to happen to me, looking back, and vice versa. Whatever I thought was like so great really wasn't. And so when you can go through walking through your life and having these positive and negative experiences, but you're going into something where it's like, well, wait a minute, let me see, maybe the universe is doing something for me like it's done in the past. So maybe this isn't horrible that this didn't work out. Maybe it's actually good. You can have like just that space to have that thought, I think, can save you. And you don't have to be on antidepressants and be doing talk therapy, because you have that plasticity to adapt to whatever's happening in the moment.
That is beautifully said, Zappy.
We're so grateful to have you on the podcast. And thank you so much for this conversation. It was such a pleasure to meet you. And
you guys,
I hope our paths cross soon.
I know they're gonna, and I want you guys to come to one of my ketamine group. We call them ketitations. It's a ketamine advanced meditation.
Let us know.
I'm going to let you know. I'm supposed to do it at Harvard University for students, and I'm going to be in Cambridge, Massachusetts, doing it with a psychedelic society at Harvard. And next time I'm in Canada, next time you guys are in New York or wherever, California, let's get it together and let's do a journey, even if we go for a hike and we just philosophize out there.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that invitation. We'll take you up on that. That's fantastic.
Awesome.
We hope you have a really beautiful day.
All right. You guys too. Love your energy. Thanks for being think for yourself, people. It's very rare in this world.
Hey, guess what? This week I am in Lisbon. I'm teaching workshops at Agora Lisboa, and soon I will be teaching in the temple at Being Gathering, which is a beautiful freedom-based conscious festival held in the heart of Boomland, surrounded by breathtaking nature and this gorgeous landscape of wild Portugal. I'm offering 2 classes in this 5-day festival. I would love to see you there. And if you are looking for an unforgettable summer experience rooted in connection, music, movement, community, yoga, altered states of consciousness, this is the festival for you. Beginning July 8th, you can find me in Faro, Portugal, leading a 5-day yoga immersion exploring the elements earth, fire, water, air, nature, ether through body, breath, and the energetic field. And I'm also going to be offering a very, very special one-night spinal energetics event along with breath work as part of this experience. You can also come and drop in. So if you are in Faro or the Algarve area, be sure to book your spots at Ashtanga House Faro. These are some incredible gatherings in Portugal. I hope to see you there. There's still space to sign up for Faro. Come find me in Lisbon. Come say hello. Practice with me at Agora Lisboa, or join the Being Gathering and find me at the temple on stage teaching yoga. I cannot wait to connect with you in person in one of these locations this month. And if not in Portugal, then I hope I'll see you somewhere along the road soon. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.